Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cradle Bytes. I know it's been a long time since we've brought you one of these episodes, but it's been quite hectic. My name is Sima Tayyim. I am content creator and social media manager at the Cradle, and I'm joined by writer and content creator Karim Shami. And I think we want to talk about the ceasefire that went into effect 4 a.m. this morning after extremely violent bombing, of course, across the south, all of Beirut, and eastern Lebanon. Now, many people didn't believe that this ceasefire was going to take place, and there are some people who still are not sure that this ceasefire will hold. So we haven't heard as of now anything from Hezbollah yet, but we know that the agreement is similar to the agreement of the Resolution 1701 that took place in 2006, with maybe, give or take, a few slight differences. So we see that almost instantly, as soon as the ceasefire took effect, the residents of Beirut southern suburb and of South Lebanon and East Lebanon started returning to their homes despite being warned by the Israeli occupation forces not to go back home. So, Karim, what are your thoughts on these scenes and on what this means?
Yeah, me included. I didn't think that there would be a ceasefire because the mentality of Netanyahu and what happened previously in the past almost 14 months tells us that there will be no ceasefire. But I think the last retaliation from Hezbollah last Sunday, where they hit Tel Aviv more than once and we saw damages. And of course, the village or the town of Khiam in the south contributed to this ceasefire because first it showed that Hezbollah still has capability to target Tel Aviv and any city that he chooses. That's one. And second is, as I said, the town of Khiam. So the Israeli army tried to enter Khiam since day one, yani since October, and they are trying to enter Khiam and they failed. And Khiam is a town that holds a very significant geographical importance and political importance and even moral importance because the town of Khiam used to be a very stronghold for the Israeli army and their allies in Lebanon during the occupation. And in Khiam, there is the Mu'taq al-Khiam, which was a prison created by the Israelis to capture any Lebanese resistance guy or anyone who opposes the occupation of South Lebanon or of Khiam. And of course, we know all that many people were tortured there. And if they regained the occupation of Khiam, it would be a victory. But after 2 months, they couldn't. And I think the Israeli army knew that if after 2 months we couldn't take such a town, then the war will take not 1 year, not 2 years, maybe 10 years to occupy Lebanon, South Lebanon, as they said, because we have to remember what the goals of the Israelis were. They wanted to push Hezbollah 10 kilometers away from the border and also to push heavy weaponry of Hezbollah north of the Litani and to return all the Israeli displaced to their settlements in the north. And none of these goals were accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, we know that internally, both the Israeli opposition and the far right are angry about this ceasefire for many reasons. The heads of the settlement councils in the north are furious. They see this as a surrender agreement because they don't see that there's any security for them, with this agreement. And why is that? Anybody who isn't familiar with Lebanon and its history and how, the landscape of the South is may read the agreement and say, 1701 means that there will only be the Lebanese army in the South, but Hezbollah has to withdraw beyond the Litani. Now, that is true on paper, but as far as we're concerned, I mean, you cannot take Hezbollah out of the South because Hezbollah is the people of the South. And I mean, how likely is it, Karim, that even if it's written on paper, and I'm going to read some of these points, how likely is it that, the Lebanese army is actually going to take the initiative to destroy Hezbollah infrastructure or, take action against Hezbollah? I mean, a lot of, I've never really seen that happen. So I don't know why it would happen this time.
It's impossible. Yani, they tried to do it under occupation and they failed. When they occupied south of Lebanon from 1982 till the year 2000, Hezbollah was present in the south. And after their withdrawal, also Hezbollah was present in the south. And following the war of 2006, Hezbollah was still in the south. Although the resolution 1701 was born because of the 2006 war. And it says that Hezbollah is not allowed to use weapon or store weapon or show any weapons south of the Litani. But of course, we all know that since day one, following the Al-Aqsa flood in October the 7th, we saw that Hezbollah started to retaliate against Israel since day one. Yani, the weapons were there and Hezbollah personnel were there. So, and this will happen. Yani. Again, I don't think the Lebanese army will ever take anything from Hezbollah. And if we saw such a thing, I think it will be like a deal under the table. Hezbollah will tell them, you guys go to this place, you can show that you took some of our weapons and that you did something, so they can, the agreement will not collapse.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if the settlers are angry about it, then they must know that the 1701 isn't good enough for them. And, the Israeli officials know that 1701 isn't good enough for them. And initially, we know that the goals were not only to return the settlers to the north, which so far no one's told them to go back, even with the ceasefire, but also to create a buffer zone up until the Litani River. And so, basically render the south up until the Litani uninhabitable and turn it into a wasteland that is a militarized zone under the control, of Israel, at least temporarily. So just the fact that people are going back to their homes, their destroyed homes in the south, is enough of a problem and is seen as enough of a victory. Now, there are many questions, as to why Netanyahu took this deal now. Was it, like you said, the battles in Khiam combined with the very, nightmarish strikes on the greater Tel Aviv area after Israel targeted outside of Beirut's southern suburb? Hezbollah targeted the greater Tel Aviv area, the Petah Tikva settlement east of Tel Aviv, causing huge damage. Now, is it possible that this, is like a rescue deal kind of for Israel? Is it possible that I was reading a report in Ma'arif that said that, because we saw today France came out and said that they will not comply with the ICC arrest warrant against Netanyahu. I saw a report that said that Netanyahu accepted a ceasefire in Lebanon in exchange for Macron not complying with the ICC arrest warrant. I think there are a million explanations as to why. I mean, the Israelis themselves said that the forces need to rest. And they are also kind of selling this to their public as we have complete freedom of action in Lebanon. We can do whatever we want. This is kind of just like a 60-day break. Our forces need to recuperate and regroup, and we need to, focus on Gaza and all of this. So it's open to interpretation, I think, and debate. But it is certain that we all knew that the Israeli occupation forces would not be able to achieve anything on the ground in the south. We know that Hezbollah took very heavy hits from the air and, through the assassination operations that have been ongoing, especially in the last 2 months, in combination with all the spies we have on the ground. So it isn't only, like an exit option for Israel. I think it's good for Hezbollah because, Hezbollah also needs to regroup and, maintain its strength, because now there's this question of, does this mean that Hezbollah has abandoned Gaza? Because we all have the words of the late Secretary General Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah saying that we will not stop this war until the war on Gaza ends. But the thing is, we moved from a phase of support front for Gaza to a phase of war on Lebanon and defending Lebanon. And naturally, things changed. I mean, I personally, personally, Gaza is a priority for me, but my emotions don't matter here. We have to read the situation and as it is, which is that, these decisions are taken for reasons we don't know. And if you're not in the battlefield and if you haven't sacrificed what our regional resistance movements have sacrificed or offered, what our resistance movements have offered, then you don't really get to criticize from your from your, your mom's basement. So I don't know what your take is on the Gaza point or the separation of the fronts, because the Israelis see the separation of the Lebanese front from the Gaza, front as a victory, and will market it that way.
Of course, Hezbollah nowadays is not Hezbollah like 2 months ago, following the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah was a very prominent, important, and exceptional figure, not only for Hezbollah, but even for many Arabs. So his assassination, of course, affected the party, and of course, the pager attacks and all the bombings and bunker busters. So I think when Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah went on the TV and said that we will support Gaza till the end, he meant it. But following the attacks of Israel, I don't think Hezbollah is able to maintain the firepower or the promises that Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah did. They might in the near future, but currently we saw many successful operations, but also we saw many days that we talked to ourselves and asked ourselves why Hezbollah is not doing anything. They were not doing anything because maybe they couldn't. But of course, I want to go back when I talked about Khiyam and the retaliation of Hezbollah last Sunday. Of course, this was a military pressure from Hezbollah that led to this deal. But of course, we have to talk about politically. I think what you said regarding Macron, that he will not recognize the ICC warrant, is part of the deal. And of course, Netanyahu was very clear for the first time, I think, when he said that we have a shortage in our ammunition, and that they need more weapons, because currently for Netanyahu, the real war will be with Iran, and he needs more weapons. And of course, Biden made some pressure on Netanyahu. And of course, on the Hebrew media, there's news circulating that if a resolution comes out from the UN condemning Israel and stopping the war in Gaza, Hebrew media reported that the United States will not veto it, and this will pressure Israel to stop the war, and Israel don't want that. So they chose to stop the war with Lebanon on their own, to maintain their strong relations with Biden. I will not say United States, because of course everybody waiting for Trump, but to maintain their good relations for this month and the next month with
I don't know about that, but it's possible. And I mean, we see that some people are, saying that this will increase the pressure on Gaza. Other people will say that now with the Lebanon deal, there's more likely for a deal to be reached in Gaza. And we saw Biden again saying that he's working on a ceasefire in Gaza, and he wants a prisoner exchange deal very soon, but of course without Hamas in power in Gaza. And so this is why personally I don't see, I see a deal in Gaza sooner than later, but not that soon, because Hamas is still in power in Gaza. Whether anyone wants to admit it, or not, that is, the truth. So I don't see how they're going to go about, doing a swap and then having the full withdrawal of the Israeli forces from Gaza, when, we have all this talk now of let's occupy Gaza, let's, thin its population out, let's take this and that, we're going to stay in Netzarim, let's resettle, let's do this, let's empty out the north completely, which, they're in the process of attempting to do. So I don't know how a Lebanon deal would lead to a Gaza deal, but it's definitely, sooner than later. And I don't know about, any vetoes at the UN. But what I know is, one thing I can say is that it is in the long run in Hamas's interest for Hezbollah to remain strong. So,
Yeah, regarding this, I think the West, including the United States, France, and Germany, and the UK, they are seeing what's happening to Israel. They are seeing what's happening to the Israeli PR, which was built, they are trying to build and to strengthen since 70 days. And all of this stuff were shattered following October 7 and their massacres in Lebanon and in Gaza. And I think they are seeing that Israel can't continue like this, unlike Netanyahu, who wants to stay in power and he's afraid to go to jail and he wants to continue the wars. But now we are seeing, I think, in my opinion, now we are seeing the power of the United States, how it can pressure any country, including Israel, although many people may disagree, including you. But I think this happened because of the pressure of Israel. We know that Israel needs weapons.
Oh.
Yes, because Israel wants weapon and all the weapons are being shipped by the United States to Israel, and the United States is taking care of the logistics and everything. And of course, we know that if you want to fly an F-35, you have to ask the Pentagon, and the Pentagon should give you a code. And there's many weapons like this that Israel gives to Israel. And Israel is dependent on U.S. weaponry. And this also shows us that Israel and the United States are both accountable of all the massacres that occurred in Gaza and in Lebanon, because we saw that in maybe one phone call, the United States can't stop the war. And not only the United States, Biden administration, which is the weakest since maybe World War II, or I don't know, since maybe the beginning of the United States, or the creation of the United States, or independence of the United States. So Biden is very weak and his administration is very weak, but thus they were able to pressure Israel. But now they pressure Israel, I'm just to make it more clear, they didn't pressure Israel because they are afraid that they will commit more massacres, or they love the Lebanese people. Or if it happens in Gaza, it won't be because they love the Gazans or the Palestinians. It's because they can see what Netanyahu can see, that Israel can't continue like this. It will be isolated. Now we see that ICC wants Netanyahu and his ex-war minister, and this is a very bad image for Israel. And also we are seeing is the Israelis themselves, not only inside Israel, outside Israel, what they are doing. Now people are seeing who the Israelis are, and this is very bad for the Israelis. And the United States and Europe can see that, unlike Netanyahu and his cabinet.
That's true, but I mean, the US doesn't want Hamas in power in Gaza, at least not with any significant power. So I don't know how long that'll take. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I feel like, of course, the pressure and the steadfastness and the ability of Hezbollah to pick itself up and cause painful strikes inside occupied Palestine is one of the reasons, of course, that we were pushed towards this deal quicker than we had imagined. But the way the deal has been marketed and manufactured, I also see it as a rescue for Israel, like a safe exit plan. Because I don't think Israel would have been able to handle 3 or 4 more strikes on the Tel Aviv area like the ones it handled. For me, if the war had continued,
I agree with you.
continued, and we had seen that extent of damage in the Tel Aviv area 4 more times, Israel would be officially over globally. Officially over, because that's Tel Aviv. This has been a fortress of safety for the Jews, according to them, since 1948. Over. Already one time, it's like, what is this? Look at where we've reached. I mean, despite everything that we've lost, I mean, Israel is not safe. Its image of being this, impenetrable fortress is forever gone. And I don't think that Israel would have been able to handle a few more months with Hezbollah, who has taken such heavy hits, was going to carry out more qualitative strikes that would be extremely humiliating. So I don't know if Israel would have been able to handle that, and so of course it's a combination of pressure.
I agree with Susema.
This urgency to, and then again, maybe it's just, oh, Macron's offering me this great deal, and anyway, my army needs to rest. It's exhausted. Don't forget they're being killed in Gaza, the Israeli soldiers, every day. They're being killed more than they were a few months ago. So there's all these factors as well. But I mean, yeah, it's a combination of things, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you, but also Israel started to bomb Beirut, and they used bunker busters in Beirut. So we have to take this into consideration. Yani if Israel only bombs military sites and like positions for Hezbollah, I'm 100% Hezbollah won't sign this deal. But we saw the damages
No, of course.
يعني and that is placed يعني for instance, and it's very complicated in Lebanon. You know, يعني we know how complicated it is. The only safe place, to be honest, for Shias that are with the resistance is very يعني narrow in Lebanon. يعني we have the Druze, the leader Jumblat. Jumblat stood and take like the right position, and he took many refugees, and the other parts were in Beirut. And we know the other parts in Lebanon that were not bombed, they are allies with with Israel. Previously, we didn't say they are allies, but they told us that they are allies. They went to the TV and they asked Israel not to stop, and they asked Israel to destroy Hezbollah. And a leader, the head of a Lebanese party, Kataib party, told Israel live on TV, don't stop, because if you stop, we can't handle Hezbollah alone. You have to help us. He said that. And these areas are not targeted, and there is no place for people to go. I think there were pressure from both sides. But of course, the situation is very complicated because there is Gaza. If it was war between Lebanon and Israel, I personally will say that it's an ultimate victory for Hezbollah. But because the war started as a front to support Gaza, I can't say it's an ultimate victory. But of course, we have to give facts here. In the south, there were 5 battalions, 5 Israeli battalions, 70,000 troops, and hundreds of tanks, air power, the strongest in the world. I think they matched the United States, because I don't think any country in the world has pilots that went and bombed as much as Israel. I think now they are the most experienced in the world. They are constantly bombing tens of times for 14 months. And of course, they have the satellites and all the technology in the world. The German technology, the Japanese, the EU, the United States, and even people. And if you do a project in an American or Japanese university and discover something, the next day this discovery will be in Israel. We have to know this. And of course, we know that Lebanon is very small, divided, and very weak, and even we don't have electricity. And thus, after 2 months, this huge army that's supported by the whole world, all what it did is like it penetrated our borders for 3 kilometers. So if you see it like this, it is a victory. If you want to see, a person that see a victory and the scale of casualties, we lost. So if you're a person that takes the victory depending on the casualties, then Hitler didn't lose. Then the Algerians lost, because in Algeria, 1 to 2 million people died to liberate their country, and few thousand died from France. And also Germany in the 40s and during World War II, people say that 3 million or 4 million Germans died in the eastern side, while 26 million Russians died. But we can say that Germany won. So we have to see what's happening in front of us on the land to assess who won and who lost.
I appreciate your attempt to give time to that and explain it. I personally don't even care about anybody who still measures victory and defeat by losses. Us here in this region, when we are talking about non-state actors or resistance movements up against the entire world, if people are still measuring based on how many houses were destroyed or how many people were killed, then we have a big problem. And I don't have time to even consider those people to be part of the conversation. But you're right. It's good to remind that it's not a measure. And, like you were saying, I'm not saying that, that Lebanon and Hezbollah didn't need this breather. Of course they did. But I'm saying the way it was manufactured was so obviously just, from the way Netanyahu spoke to his internal, public, and to the way, it was marketed as if it was just this freedom of movement and whatever he'll do whatever he wants, and none of it is really true in reality. And again, we don't know if it will hold, but just some of the points I wanted to read out. Lebanon will control arms imports and production to prevent rearmament of non-state actors, allegedly. Unauthorized arms facilities and infrastructure will be dismantled in the southern Litani area. deployment of the Lebanese armed forces, at least 10,000 soldiers. The army will assume full control over the borders and dismantle unauthorized sites. Israel will withdraw south of the Blue Line in phases within 60 days, coordinated with the Lebanese army's deployment. There's, of course, an internal monitoring mechanism, or a committee, if you would like to call it, a tripartite mechanism. The U.S., hosted by UNIFIL, and has France's involvement, and they will allegedly monitor the implementation, according to Biden, without U.S. boots on the ground. And Israel and Lebanon will cooperate with this mechanism to ensure compliance. And Lebanon will secure all border crossings and key infrastructure. The U.S. will facilitate indirect negotiations to resolve remaining disputes along the Blue Line. U.S. and France will lead international efforts for economic development and capacity building in Lebanon. So, Karim, I mean, what's your take, again, just before we wrap up, on the idea of the Lebanese army dismantling, infrastructure of Hezbollah, or Hezbollah, disarming in the south or in Lebanon in general?
It's illogical and it can't be implemented. Nobody can implement this. Yani, this is an agreement. On the paper, it's good maybe for Israel, but on the ground, this will never be implemented. Nobody can do this. Not even the Lebanese army. It's known that Hezbollah is stronger than the Lebanese army, and that's not the reason why the Lebanese army can do it, because also part of the Lebanese army also supports Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is in the south, and the people support him. Yani the army can't come and say, "Oh, there's weapons here, let us take it." Yani it's impossible. They tried this in the 90s, in the 2000s, 2006, and now. Yani, and if, for instance, just to be frank here, if the Israelis don't know where Hezbol's arms and weapons are, nobody can. And the Lebanese army is very weak. The Lebanese army will not know where the weapons are. Maybe we see a footage or a statement that, oh, we found this, we took this. I think this will be an agreement under the table to keep this agreement alive, and just to prevent embarrassment for the Lebanese army.
Right. And what's your, okay, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of stuff happening right now. There are even violations of the ceasefire happening. There are arrests being made by Israeli forces in South Lebanon. There are, Israeli forces opening fire on residents in South Lebanon, not to forget that they're still there. We don't know how this will go in the next few days, and we know that there are Israelis who view it only as a pause in fighting, so we don't know. But also, what is your take on, Israel's goals to stop Iran from arming Hezbollah through Syria?
It's impossible, because they are trying to do this since, I think, since 2008, they are trying to do this, and following the Syrian civil war, which I think was ignited. This was one of the reasons why it was ignited, and I think Israel is trying to bomb Syrian border crossing with Lebanon since 6 or 7 years, and also yesterday the last bombings that Israel conducted before 4 a.m. before the ceasefire. Was bombing all the crossings between Lebanon and Syria. I think there's, of course, maybe things underground where the weapons are shipped. I don't think the weapons are shipped where people goes. And Netanyahu was very clear in his speech. He threatened Bashar al-Assad personally, the president of Syria personally, because I think this is I think that till now Israel don't know how the weapons are being shipped. And they can't stop them. They did the war, and they bombed all the crossings. Until now, we can see it, and we can feel it, that the weapons are still being shipped from Syria to Lebanon, and then to Hezbollah.
A very large area, and so even though right now it's in East Lebanon, it's a catastrophe in terms of losses and destruction and death.
Yeah, we have to mention this because there's around 200,000 people that fled Lebanon to Syria. Now they can't return back because there's no pressing between the two countries.
Yeah, they're all out of service, the border crossings at the moment. But you're saying that the weapons are fine. So, and then also, no, I mean, it's important to remember that when I ask you a question and you answer with,
Look, I think this is like an ultimate goal for Israel. If they felt that they accomplished something, they will release videos, tapes, and Netanyahu personally will answer.
questions just to see, just for our viewers. But so it's important also that when you say this is impossible, it can't happen, you're not saying it based on your own head. You're saying it based on history. We've seen these things be, whether it's like Cemetery one in the south or any of those things. And another thing about the agreement, there's that both sides have the right to self-defense in the event that the agreement is violated. Anyway,
It should be written. This stuff should be written.
yeah. Nothing is clear. Again, we haven't heard from Hezbollah yet, so they're not here to jump to conclusions. It's not our place, but this is how it is, and we're hoping that things will become more clear with time, and that everyone will be able to rebuild and bury their martyrs. And there's still leaders that need to be buried, and there's families and children and mothers, and there's so much to do now. So there's so much that was given, there's so much that was offered, all in support of Gaza. And I mean, Israel's strategic failures are clear to anyone who's been following this war. And it depends, I think, from what angle you look at it. I mean, like you said, if Israel succeeded in defeating Hezbollah, they would have said it. If they succeeded in stopping arms from Iran through Syria, they would have said it. I don't see any real achievements. I see that assassinating Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah is definitely an achievement, but that was something that they were going to do and that they had in mind, with or without Al-Aqsa flood specifically. So I don't, in terms of Israel's goals, in terms of the new Middle East, I see just total failure. So, for what that's worth, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's all from their side, and they made themselves fail because their aim was so high and their goals, their declared goals were very high, and and they can't achieve them. I don't know why they put such goals, like dismantling Hezbollah, like defeating Hamas, or completely destroying Hamas. These stuff, these are very high goals that are not achievable. If they said we're gonna kill the leaders of Hezbollah, we're gonna weaken Hezbollah, okay, this is like a reasonable goal. But what they did and what they said,
there was a short period of time where we felt that they were saying they were going to eliminate Hezbollah, but that wasn't really ever the stated goal. That was the stated goal of 2006. That wasn't, I don't know if in this war there was a, we are going to eliminate Hezbollah, like eradicate.
not the war minister said literally that they want to destroy all the capabilities of Hezbollah, and he said that Hezbollah will not have missiles, and this was not.
I mean, then the Israelis, they want they need now to list their achievements. So they will say, we decapitated, we eliminated all the first generation leaders, we took out all these warehouses, we took out all these facilities. I mean, at the end of the day, we know this is not how you can't defeat a resistance movement. And it would have become much more genocidal, as well as another thing. It was already almost a declared act of genocide against the Shia, I mean, to be honest. But it was also at risk of moving to a new level when Israel threatened Lebanon infrastructure. As the Broadcasting Corporation cited, officials saying, like, we will move to the next phase where we will target all Lebanon's infrastructure. Then we would have gone to a whole new level of disaster. So this ceasefire was reached for endless reasons, and I think time will show us, who's come out on top with this deal. No,
Yeah, we have to wait and see, and maybe the deal will last for 10 years, and it might last only for 10 days. Only time will tell.
It's been difficult. and it's still going. And, fronts of the resistance axis still coordinate. They are still, we saw many statements by the Palestinian factions and by Palestinians in Gaza who made videos saying, we're really happy about the ceasefire in Lebanon, despite all of the criticism and the questions. So the war hasn't ended. The war on Gaza, I think everyone needs to pay a lot of attention to that right now and put their energy into that. And yeah, that's all we have for you today. So thank you guys for listening and being here with us. And I hope you follow us on all our platforms and stay tuned for the next time we bring you one of these. And see you soon.